We will start in just a few minutes. How many? How many do we have? Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call June 7th, 2021 Wilson School Board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Please stand for the pledge of the flag. Mr. Moravich, we do not have any agenda item.
I'll limit my comments on comments till the end of the meeting. So all the people who signed up for non-agenda items. So I'll go over the protocol when we get to the end of the meeting, which is when the non-agenda items are addressed.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay. All right. Want to bring it up? Okay, item 1.6, looking for a motion to approve the resolution authorizing purchase of real estate in lieu of condemnation as per attached. Looking for a motion? Mr. Schneider first. Do we have a second? Mr. Negrini, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Abstain.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
That's 8 yes and 1 abstain.
1.7, communications. We have a presentation of 2021 board scholarship. Mrs. Cocker, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. It is my honor to present this 2021 board scholarship this evening. The criteria for this award is that it is presented to a graduating senior who is involved in extracurriculars, is civic-minded, demonstrates academic excellence, and also is pursuing a post-secondary education. In 2021, the recipient of this scholarship is Ms. Gianni Clark. Ms. Clark is an outstanding student and is committed to serving her community and her school. During her time at Wilson, she was a member of the National Honor Society, received the Good Citizenship Award, and was a Rotary Club Student of the Month, among many other awards and honors. She was involved in countless school and community organizations, including serving as student government president, the school board representative, being a member of the District Equity Task Force, and Link Crew. She also participated in orchestra, the dance team, served as a volunteer at Helping Harvest, all of its Boys and Girls Club, Hope Rescue Mission, and so much more. Gianni is clearly an outstanding representative of our school district and deserving of this honor. And now she's officially an alumni of Wilson High School. Congratulations on your graduation and receiving the 2021 Board Scholarship, Gianni. We wish you the best as you attend Penn State University in the fall to pursue a degree in education.
Congratulations.
I have more to address the board in my report.
Okay, thank you. 1.8, the board met in executive session earlier this evening to discuss personnel and property issues, concerns. 2.1, for an approval of the minutes for the school board meeting held on May 17, 2021, as attached. Looking for a motion. Mr. Martin first. Do I have a second?
Second case?
Mr. Case, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Payment of bills. Mr. Martin.
Mr. President, I submit for approval of bills in the amount of $2,087,543.78.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Negrini, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report. Dr. Fadley.
Thank you, President Hart. Before I begin and make my recommendation to approve the personnel and program recommendations, I want to take this opportunity to introduce our 5 newest Bulldogs that are here with us this evening. I would first like to introduce Steve Rhodes, who will be our new assistant principal at West Middle School. Next, Ramon Marquez, who will become our newest assistant principal at Wilson High School. Ganji Kachufo, who will become our director of teaching and learning for the district. Sarah Grave, who will become a new school psychologist in the district at Green Valley. And Amanda Fries, who will become a new school counselor at Green Valley. Included in the superintendent's report this evening are several retirements, and I want to acknowledge these retirements and their service to the Wilson School District. Beth Anastasio, Special Ed Instructional Assistant at Shiloh, with 5 years of service to the Wilson School District. Robert Crick, Custodian at the high school, with 6 years of service to the Wilson School District. Jenny Thomas, Secretary to the Principal at West Middle School, 23 years of service to the Wilson School District. I congratulate our newest administrators and employees, as well as recognize these retirees for their service to the Wilson community and wish them well on their next journey in their life. With that, Mr. Hart, I present the superintendent personnel and program recommendations for board consideration.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve superintendent items 4.1 through 4.10 as presented. Mr. Martin first, Mr. Case second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy? Yes. Mrs. Cocker? Yes. Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Consent items. Mrs. Cocker.
Accept with gratitude the following donations. From the Giant Company, a check in the amount of $13,685.36 to our Food Services Department to be used towards student balances and to fund the summer meal distribution program. Following donations are in memory of James Melcher to be used for athletic activity fees for students in need. First, from Joseph and Jill Walsh, a check in the amount of $50. From Joseph and Constance Camerano, a check in the amount of $100. From Cheryl Stutzman, a check in the amount of $75. And from Barry T. Aioli, I might have butchered it, Aiolo, a check in the amount of $40.
Thank you. Looking for a motion? Mr. McCray first. Do I have a second? Mr. Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Under Human Resources, 6.1, request to authorize the administrative salary increases as attached. Looking for a motion? Mrs. Cocker first. Do we have a second? Mrs. Casper, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin? Mr. McCray? Mr. Negrini? Mr. Schneider? Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper? Dr. Kennedy? Mr. Hart?
Abstain?
That's 8 yes and 1 abstain.
6.2, request to approve the support staff compensation ranges as attached. 6.3, request to approve the updated support staff handbook as attached. 6.4, request approval of the print shop specialist and custodial supervisor for day shift job descriptions as attached. 6.5, request approval to reclassify the behavior specialist position from a CBA to the Act 93, Range 5, effective July 1st, 2021. 6.6, request approval of the third quarter transportation safety and attendance stipend. 6.7, look to approve items 6.2 through 6.6 as presented. Do I have a motion? Mr. Schneider first, Mr. Martin second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray? Mr. Negrini? Mr. Schneider? Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper? Dr. Kennedy? Mrs. Cocker? Mr. Hart?
Yes.
That's 9 yes, 0 no.
Under Student Services, Mrs. Cocker.
7.1, request permission to contract with the Vista School for one special education student for 2021-2022 school year services at a cost of $57,563.71, pending solicitor review and approval. 7.2, request approval to contract with River Rock Academy, purchasing 8 secondary slots for the 2021-2022 school year at a discounted rate of $139.11 per day for an annual cost of $205,882.80, pending solicitor review and approval. 7.3, request approval of the Memorandum of Understanding with Spring Township and Lower Heidelberg Township law enforcement authorities as attached. 7.4, request of permission to contract with Hogan Learning Academy, LLC, for 6 special education students for 2021-2022 school year services at a cost of $405 per student per day for the school year, beginning 8/23/21 and ending 8/19/2022, pending solicitor review and approval. 7.5, request permission to contract with Hogan Learning Academy for 8 special education students for extended school year services at a cost of $400 per student per day, beginning June 28, 2021, and ending August 6, 2021, pending solicitor review and approval. 7.6, request approval to contract with New Story, LLC for 2021 extended school year services for 2 special education students at a cost of $370 per student per day, beginning June 21, 2021, and ending July 29, 2021, pending solicitor review and approval. 7.7, request permission to approve the adoption of a settlement agreement and release to establish an education fund to be held and managed by the district in the amount of $30,000 for legitimate educational expenses, to settle and compromise all claims raised by parents of a special education student, and to authorize the board president and secretary to execute the agreement on behalf of the district. 7.8, request permission to apply for the following Act 80 days for the 2020-2021 school year. 7.9, request approval of a service agreement with Dr. Stephen Kachmar to perform an independent educational evaluation at a fee not to exceed $4,000 in accordance with board policy number 113.3.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve Student Services Agenda Items 7.1 through 7.9 as presented. Mrs. Casper first. Do we have a second? Mr. Schneider, any discussion? Mr. Martin?
President, I know we have to, by law, we have to approve this. We have no choice. I don't even know why these are even listed on the report, but if you look at 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, we have 16 students that are going to cost this district $1,146,000. That's 1% of our budget. So when you look at this, you say, well, we have to do it, we have no choice, you have to vote yes, I get that. But I'm going to vote no as a protest because 1% of our budget for 16 students is very hard for me to accept. So that's all I just want to mention. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
The ongoing issue that we continue to bring up year after year after year as we prepare our final budget, that what is provided by the state in terms of special education funding has remained flat and level for 20 years. And so, unfortunately, with that, the burden rests upon the taxpayers of our community to meet the educational needs of these folks. And unless and until people voice their concerns with the local elected officials in Harrisburg to change funding formulas for education, we are going to continue to bear that burden. And so, speak up. There's a lot of people here speaking up tonight, here to discuss local issues. That's an issue that should be discussed as well with your local officials in Harrisburg. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
No.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper? Dr. Kennedy? Mrs. Cocker? Mr. Hart?
Yes.
That's 8 yes, 1 no.
Under operations, Mrs. Cocker?
8.1, request permission to authorize the Berks County Conservation District to enter the Green Valley West campus property with the intention to design and/or replace conservation practices, best management practices on the Green Valley West campus property for the purpose of improving water quality on the Little Cuckoozing Creek waterway. This agreement will identify specific maintenance tasks and the parties that will be responsible to perform those tasks to ensure that the conservation practice, best management practice is properly maintained. It is agreed and understood between the landowner and Berks County Conservation District. The operation and maintenance will be performed by a designated third party with the qualifications and ability to complete the post-construction maintenance requirements at no financial burden to the landowner.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve item 8.1 as presented. Dr. Kennedy first. Do I have a second? Mr. Case, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper? Dr. Kennedy? Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Curriculum and Staff Development, 9.1, request approval to pay Jacob Peterson for the second semester for virtual financial planning. Do I have a motion?
Cocker?
Mrs. Cocker first. Do I have a second? Mr. Schneider, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini? Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper? Dr. Kennedy? Mrs. Cocker? Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray? Mr. Hart?
Yes.
That's 9 yes, 0 no.
Under policies, our final reading and adoption, 10.1, final reading and adoption of the following revised policies. 113.5, confidentiality of special education information, and 137.1, participation and homeschool student in district programs. Looking for a motion? Mr. Martin first. Do you have a second?
Case?
Mr. Case, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper? Dr. Kennedy? Mrs. Cocker? Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray? Mr. Negrini? Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under committees, 12.1, Berks Career and Technology Center, Mrs. Casper.
Thank you, President Harmon. The meeting was held at the East Campus and also via Zoom on Wednesday, May 26th. We recognize the senior recipients of the JOC Scholarship for Excellence Award, and of the 4 recipients, 2 are Wilson seniors representing the East Campus, Alexander Consoman and Ida Coley. So congratulations to those 2 seniors, and good luck with all your post-graduation plans. We also watched a video and learned a little bit of the history around the Student-Built Homes project. We got to see all the local homes built through the project, which was really quite a treat. That's really all I have. The next meeting will be held at the West Campus on June 23rd. At the
Thank
West
you.
Campus, yes.
Thank you. Wilson Equity Task Force, Mrs. Casper.
Yes, our last meeting from June 2nd was canceled, so although I have no report, I did want to make it clear that the task force is committed to passing an equity policy for the district. Although we planned the second reading of Equity Policy 832 for tonight's meeting, it was pulled from this meeting's agenda to further discuss the policy with members of the board. We indeed plan to pass an equity policy for the district as it is a required component for our comprehensive plan. The public can find the first reading of the draft of the policy from our May 17th board minutes and are welcome to attend the task force meetings when the schedules are posted on our website. I believe it was originally called our Student Support Services Committee, but as a committee, we had decided a while ago to change the name to the Equity Task Force based on the work that we were doing. I want to thank all those who are in support of the work of the task force, and I hope to continue to see that positive support from our district. That's my report.
Thank you. Berks County IU, Dr. Kennedy.
We talked about some of the things we actually talked about the last board meeting because it overlapped. The 39th annual secondary art exhibit at Goggleworks had multiple participants from Wilson, and I believe Johnny brought that up last time. On Thursday, May 20th, Dr. Fadley, along with Dr. Mumeen from Reading, Mr. Pottinger from Brandywine, and Dr. Hackman from the BCIU, participated in the Berks Alliance Community Forum about talking about the positive impact of COVID on the pre-K to 12 education. And the forum focused on how schools adjusted and adapted to the challenges presented by COVID and how the pandemic will positively impact the future of the education in our schools. The BCIU just held a job fair for early childhood educators. They're going to have another job fair for transportation, and there will be additional job fairs announced. They're hiring in all areas. They are going to hold an instruction and technology conference virtually June 15th and June 16th from 8:30 to 3. Look at the BCI website for their information. And our next meeting is June 17th.
Thank you. Curriculum Committee, Dr. Kennedy.
Okay. We talked about, well, first we said goodbye to Dr. Andes, who will be retiring. We also talked about we're getting new English language learning curriculum for our elementary schools. We already got it for our, first for the high school, then the middle school, now the elementary school is following suit. We talked about adopting the middle school units of study for our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade reading classes, which I think is going to be a really welcome change for the students. We also talked about the rebranding of the Berkshire Heights preschool. Now, we all know we're all still going to call it the Berkshire Heights, but I really love that we're now going to officially call it the Wilson Preschool at the Berkshire Heights Learning Center, because I think that it really points to the fact that we're taking charge and we're owning that preschool, and it's part of our learning experience here. We also got a preview of the graduation and end-of-year plans, and I know poor Mrs. Troutman was having about 18 heart attacks every hour while she was planning and looking at the weather, but it was amazing. It was beautiful. The graduation ceremony was fabulous. Prom was awesome. Everything that happened for these kiddos at the end of the year was absolutely outstanding and was perfect. So congratulations to everyone, and there were so many people, so many students, so many administrations, so many teachers involved in that, and it was beyond the expectations. And I hate to tell poor Mrs. Troutman, but oh my gosh, all everybody talks about is, I want my child to graduate in the stadium with a parade and fireworks. So I'm so sorry. But you outdid yourself, and it ran too well. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Berks EIT, Mrs. Schlossman.
I have no report.
Extracurricular, Mrs. Cocker.
We have not had a meeting since our last board meeting, so our next meeting is next Monday, June 14th at noon in the admin building.
Thank you. Facilities, Mr. Negrini.
Our next meeting is June 14th at 4:30 in here, and then we have a workshop later that evening at 6 o'clock as we continue to discuss the second portion of the feasibility study.
Thank you. Thank you. Legislative, Mr. Martin.
Yes, we had a meeting today, at 4:30, to go over the planning for the audit for this year with Herbine and Company. We looked at the child care budget, as well as the food service budgets. Obviously, they're coming back out of the COVID situation, so things are looking up. Not great, but they're looking up. We did review the general fund and the financials, and we're doing better than we anticipated. We're going to have some excess revenue that we weren't anticipating, and we're looking to put that into one of our reserve funds for future use, and that was pretty much it.
Thank you. And again, my apologies, that was a finance report. Now legislative, Mr. Martin.
All right. As you may know, the legislators are back today. They'll be in Harrisburg, I should, till the end of June 30th. They want to try to pass a budget. They've got $10 billion of funds that they have to find a home for. The funds are 7-point-some million is from the feds, excess one-time revenues as we're getting from the school district also. And there's $3 billion in excess funds that they collected this year. So there's going to be a lot of hee-hawing around. It's a one-time $10 billion. So hopefully they don't get stupid with it and put it into a program that's not sustainable. So there's going to be hee-hawing about that. There's a couple of bills being presented to allow for better health management care for folks. Right now, with sharing, Pennsylvania does not share data that often with the various health providers. So there's a bill in place that would help mental health in situations from where people share information readily versus, you go to this person, you can't share it with that mental doctor. So that should pass, I would think, unanimously. And basically, it's going to be budget sessions. What to do, and how to spend that money. And it's a nice thing to have, but they got to be careful. That's it.
Thank you. Human Resources. We have no report. Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman.
Good evening. I just want to publicly thank the entire Wilson community for your unwavering support this past school year. From our staff to our students to our families, we have felt supported and encouraged as we work together to navigate this most challenging year. The culmination of the year was ended with events and activities across our district, all designed to celebrate the accomplishments of our amazing students. We had moving up ceremonies, concerts, academic and athletic award ceremonies, plays and musicals, and countless athletic events. And the creativity and perseverance of our students and staff to make all these things possible is nothing short of incredible. So we just had a great weekend celebration of the class of 2021, as we just talked about, and we just cannot express how amazing it is to be a part of the Wilson community. From our parent volunteers, probably about 75 of them, who organized our cap and gown event and raised countless dollars and donations for our seniors, to the community that donated in excess of $15,000 to allow us to create an incredibly memorable graduation event, complete with a parade, a ceremony in Gursky Stadium, and fireworks. We want to thank each and everyone who had a part in making these seniors, and I have a senior, and I want to tell you, they felt so special and loved and appreciated by all of you and by this community. It is awesome to be a Bulldog. And to the amazing team that allowed our students to have a senior prom, many of you who are in this room, you guys are just amazing. It's incredible. It's incredible to be a part of the Wilson School District. So as we look forward to the 2021-2022 school year, we recently launched a thought exchange to gather the thoughts of our community around the question, as a district, what have we done well this past year, and what should we continue to do? To date, we have had over 1,000 participants who shared 700 thoughts, again, showing just how committed this school district is, or this community is to the school district. This exchange will close on June 10th, and we will analyze and publish the results. So please continue to follow the Wilson School District on social media and check out our district website over the summer. And we will continue to share all of the things that we're doing to bring all our students back in the fall for another great school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
Sure. The Ed Foundation met on Friday. It was a great meeting. It started off with, we had two guests, two teachers from Spring Ridge share one of the venture grants that they got from the Ed Foundation and what they did with it. These two teachers, Mary Plummer and Tanya Cosgrove, they presented with the venture grant, they received a bunch of building materials for the remote learning kids that they had this year. So they had a great presentation with the kids at home and shared that experience, and the kids shared their experience of what they built. And it's been a real challenge to teach remote students all year. So it was a big help to them. So it was very uplifting and refreshing to see. So it's one of the reasons I love being a part of the Ed Foundation meetings. Also, the Ed Foundation helps pass through a lot of scholarships for Wilson School District. And although the funds haven't necessarily come from the Ed Foundation, I just wanted to share some of the checks that went out to Ryan Strobel, $1,000 for the Paul Warchek Memorial Scholarship. Also, all eligible senior players received a scholarship called the Reggie Weiss Scholarship. Also, Sarah Krevelin, $2,500 for the Lauren Maurer Memorial Scholarship. Peter Wolf, $1,000 for the Scott Keenan Memorial Scholarship. Lily Palmer, $3,000 for the General Fred Franks Scholarship. And Allison Klein, $1,000 for the Whitfield Alumni Scholarship. So we have some great students within our school district, and many of them are on that list that just received scholarships, so very proud of them. Lastly, the Wilson Community Night, save the calendar date. That's this Friday, June 11th. There's a game at 7:05 p.m. The gate opens at 5 p.m. Tickets are still on sale. The deck picnic and buffet starts at 6 p.m. To 8:30 p.m. Tickets can be purchased this week at the administration building or contacting the Ed Foundation. It's for a good cause. Get out with your community and raise some money for the Ed Foundation, which is a good cause. Also, with that being said, save the date. There's to be announced at some point late summer 2021. There will be some sort of a Wilson fundraising event, bash. They have announced that 2 teachers have been picked, although they wouldn't tell me because I usually wind up telling everybody. So they didn't give me that information, so we're going to hold that. But the teachers have been picked. Anyway, all good things, and it was a great end of the year meeting, and more to come in September. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Case. Technology Committee, Mr. Schneider.
Yes, we met today. We talked about professional learning being provided for the teachers over the summer. We talked about some of the cybersecurity measures we have to put in place in terms of phishing emails and ransomware. And then we talked about Chromebook distribution, orders that have been placed that should be coming in soon. We talked about some changes in some of our providers for internet and phone. We talked about some programs that we're going to renew. We talked about a lot of the stuff that needs to be ordered. 2,850 student Chromebooks are going to be coming in. And then we talked about how to deal with, as we continue to be more and more tech-based, dealing with damage to things like laptops. And that's my report. But before, I would just like to give an extra special shout out for the events this weekend. I was fortunate to be at prom last night. Miss Gianni Clark looked beautiful, as did all the kids. They looked great. They had a great time. But I would like to give a special shout out, in addition to all the teachers and admin and everybody else that participated, to Jeff Simcox, who really pulled off a lot of things to get all these things to happen for the kids. So wherever you are at, Jeff, thank you.
Thank you. Student Outreach, Mr. Johnny Clark.
First, I would like to add on to how special this weekend was for me and my other classmates. About 300 students attended Cap and Gown, which is insane, and we all left with a door prize. I think I left with $20. Unfortunately, I didn't win one of the big speakers that I put all my tickets into, but it's okay. About 400 students attended prom, which is, again, a lot of students considering we have about 500. And I just want to say thank you to everyone again. Thank you to Dr. Weber and Mr. Bender. He was over there before. Thank you so much for responding to all my emails and taking all of my suggestions. Thank you to the senior class officers and the senior class student government officers who helped put together my dream and the entire class's dream. And just thank you to the board and all the administrators for putting it together. Next, I would like to present to you Kamari Clark. Kamari, can you stand up? At the next board meeting, I'll be presenting the 2021 to 2022 Student Government President, Maddie Negrini. She will be joining the board as a student body representative next year. When Maddie is unavailable, the 2021 to 2022 Student Government Vice President will read the report in her place. I'm excited to announce that my sister, Kamari Clark, is the Vice President. Kamari is an active member of student government as a Senate member and the 2020 to 2021 media chair. She is also part of Minithon as an operations captain this year, and next year she will be the media captain at the high school. She's involved in concert choir, treble choir, dance team, orchestra, link crew, and next year she will be Mrs. Troutman's media intern. I know that they'll both do an amazing job next year, and congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Finally, one more thing. Finally, I'd like to thank all of you. Thank you for your grounded decision-making that is always in the best interest of the students. This year presented numerous tough decisions that were left at the hands of the board. Nevertheless, you were able to take into consideration all affected parties. Wilson is fortunate to have such a dedicated group of people leading our district. Thank you for teaching me about leadership and how to speak up for what you believe in. While this is my last report, I have no doubt that we will meet in the future, whether it's somewhere in the community or during my pursuit to obtain a certification in secondary education and hopefully teach at Wilson School District. Thank you so much for all you do for Wilson, and thank you for having me as a student body representative.
You're welcome. Thank you. Congratulations to all the seniors, and I hope you had a great weekend. It was a really great weekend for all students in the community, and for the school year, I thank all the people that helped to make it a success, from students, teachers, administration, support staff, community, and I hope I didn't miss anyone there. I apologize if I did. Thank you again it was a challenging year, and we made it through, and I want to thank you personally for all the hard work that was put into this school year from everyone involved. So thank you, and I hope you have a great summer. Mr. Maravich.
No report.
We do have agenda items.
Yes. Do you have a statement first, or do you?
Mrs. Cocker, will you read that?
The board received a number of emails from our community regarding recent correspondence from State Representative Jim Cox regarding the district's proposed equity policy. Unfortunately, Representative Cox failed to contact the district to understand the policy before he published misinformation pertaining to the Wilson School District. We've requested a face-to-face meeting with Representative Cox to clarify for him the facts and are awaiting his response to our request for that meeting. We would like our public to know that Board Policy Number 832, Educational Equity, is designed to create a framework for the Wilson School District's commitment to ensure an equitable experience for all students. As a district, we define educational equity as when educational policies, practices, interactions, and resources are representative of, constructed by, and responsive to all people so that each individual has access to, meaningfully participates in, and has positive outcomes from high-quality learning experiences, regardless of individual characteristics and group memberships. This policy affirms that the Wilson School District is committed to teaching the Pennsylvania state standards for social studies, as well as providing equitable opportunities for all students. The board has requested further conversation regarding this proposed policy. As such, a policy ad hoc committee meeting will be held in the fall.
Thank you. Mr. Maravich?
Rules of public participation for school board meetings pursuant to the Sunshine Law, Robert's Rules, and Board Policy. The following are the rules of public participation. Individuals attending this meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner and not to disrupt the meeting. Comments are to be directed to the board as a body and not to individual board members or administrators. Comments are to be made from the speaker's podium, and at no time should anyone pass the podium and approach the board tables. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. At 1 minute, I'm keeping the clock, so I'll give you a heads up on 1 minute, and then another heads up for when you have no time left. Comments are to be on matters that are or may come before the board and are not question and answer. The above expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903, which is on the district website under the board docs.
Thank you, Mrs. Cocker. You have the slips, I believe.
The first paper I have is Tammy Keener. I don't know if everyone's in the room or not, or if... I was just going to do it in the... It's okay, I was just going to do it in the order that I have a stack, yeah.
Question while we're waiting. The meeting with Representative Cox, is that open to the public?
Dr. Faley?
Representative Cox has yet to respond back to the request sent to him today regarding the scheduling of a meeting. Certainly, if Representative Cox would like that meeting to be open, we would consider that. But obviously, we would need to make sure we comply with the number of the limits of what we can hold in a particular space. But once Representative Cox contacts me, I would be glad to have that conversation with him.
Thank you.
Can I speak?
You may.
All right, my name is Tammy Keener, and I'm a Christian, a mother, a wife, a veteran of the United States Army, and I hold a double bachelor's degree in accounting and finance and business management, and I graduated magna cum laude from Malvern University. I am a longtime resident of Sinking Spring and a stakeholder in the decision processes of Wilson School Board. Recently, I realized that the teachers run on both sides of the ticket when it comes to running for this position. This hinders the parents' right to gain a seat on the board and results in teachers voting on their own benefits. I have talked to my senator and my representative, and they're working on legislation to stop this practice. In Commonwealth-Weiser School District, teachers are not allowed to sit on the board. Only parents and residents of the school district.
If I might ask you to put your mask up, we do have a
I
requirement.
can't breathe with this on, sir. I have a
Well,
port.
we do-
I'm not even supposed to wear these.
Thank you.
Why, and I better claim my time back right now. Why isn't this the policy of Wilson School District? I understand you've received federal funding in the amount of $8,743,163 during COVID. If you received this money, why are you raising our taxes? We, the people, are sick of the spending. It is never ending and it needs to stop. No other school in Berks County is raising their taxes. Why have you taken the liberty to raise ours? Being a disabled veteran, I live on a fixed income. I'm blessed to still be living in my home. But with any little increase I get, You guys take it for the taxes. There are 10,000 people a year losing their homes to the ever-rising school property taxes. Many of them are on fixed incomes. You are ignoring our constitutional amendment that we boldly stated 77.23% in 2017. Do not raise our taxes. I am also upset with the fact that the board wants to allow critical race theory, or equity as you call it. We the people are very opposed to that. Your job is to educate our children, not indoctrinate them. When I spoke to you, sir, last week, you assured me and you were adamantly never going to let against critical race theory, and you were never going to let it come to our school districts. I see already it's been on the docket. This has to stop, and the posted agenda we will not allow it to come through. I am urging you to vote no on this issue. This is a fascist and Marxism group. Teachers should stick to the curriculum and not have political views. I am running for school board in the fall as a write-in candidate, and I know I can succeed. My name has been out there for 13 years fighting the elimination of school property tax. Kutztown parents did it, 3 of them on a write-in in the spring, and they're on the ballot. So this isn't hard anymore. People are waking up and they understand and realize what you're doing. We the people decide. We hire you, we'll fire you. No tax should have the power to leave us homeless.
Thank you.
That no, Wilson School District also does not allow current teachers on the school board, although some of us may be either teachers in other districts or former Wilson teachers. Once you're a school board member, you have to wait a year until your term ends, until you're allowed to be employed by the district in any manner, because I had to look into that. I am not a teacher. I was a teacher for 10 years. I am not a...
All 500 school districts are exactly the same. It's
Right.
state law. It's not Conrad Weiser's, it's nobody's law.
And we need to get you off. We'll fire you.
Okay. Next is Carla Mannix.
Good evening, Board. It has been many years since I have been able to attend a board meeting and share my thoughts. I appreciate the opportunity. I applaud and welcome the creation of the Equity Task Force. I feel that's excellent direction. I'm on the Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Council at Alvernia University, and we too are struggling with how to manage our organization to become more equity-minded and raising our awareness of the difference between equity and equality and what that means for our policies and procedures. What I'd like to say this evening is that every teacher starts off the class with an essential question, right? That question sets the tone and the goal of the unit lesson. We are all on an educational journey here in a self-paced course. We're all at a different place in this course of miracles. And every teacher will agree, you and the curriculum committee are the unit lesson creators for our district and need to set forth a useful, relevant, and productive essential question that will guide our discussions, guide our conversations, guide the direction of your actions. So I want you to put your teacher's hat on and come up with a question that's relevant, productive, and useful. I would argue that every teacher will agree it's a long accepted value to promote critical thinking in our schools. I'm not familiar with the details of this critical race theory, but I would be surprised if our teachers and curriculum committee would subscribe to a single theory. I believe in our teachers' ability to analyze our curriculum in light of the recently revealed historic truths and the impact that it has had on our students. And I would encourage you to consult your teachers. Sometimes there's a dichotomy between board and teachers, staff and teachers. Our teachers know the impact that racism has on our students. More importantly, we need to ask, how can we equip our students to navigate as they leave the school district into an increasingly compassionate and equitable society. We want them to be able to engage in a way that is more aware. I propose that most of us can agree that we seek to continue building an inclusive society, and we all want to know when and how our fellow Bulldogs are being impacted by racism. The question is not whether this is racist or that's racist. The question, I feel, is when racism occurs, how can we address it within the circles where we act? So since you have a great sphere of influence, I would like to encourage you to engage an expert in anti-racist, anti-oppression training so that you all have a shared experience of the same kind of knowledge and readings and reflections that are encountered in those kinds of trainings. And I feel that that will lead you to more enlightened decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Henry Seidel, sorry. Looking now.
Move on to the next one until he arrives. Or is he?
I think some people are in a different location, so I don't have that order.
Let's move on to the next name, and we'll go back to him next after this person.
Okay, okay. Heidi Zerby? Oh, okay. I'll just go until I find, okay. Thanks, thank you. Yes, and then next, yep, Mr. Seidel. And then next is, after him is Heidi Zerby, if we want to have that queued. Thank you.
Sorry for the delay. I was up in one of the auxiliary rooms watching the meeting. Hello, my name is Henry Seidel. I'm the parent of a Wilson School female student. I want to speak to you about the educational equity information that was first read at the last school board meeting. I don't know how the board members feel personally and professionally about this proposed equity policy, but the fact that we are talking about it tells me it is being taken seriously. In my opinion, Wilson currently provides an incredible opportunity for almost anyone to learn and grow. I challenge you to find more than a few that would disagree with the statement. However, individual students and parents need to make the choice and have the discipline to take advantage of the opportunities provided. We can't expect or be expected to force a successful education on someone that isn't interested. Nor can we suppress the success of those that want to take advantage of the opportunity to make sure that they don't get more than their fair share when compared to someone who can't or won't make the effort to get the most out of their educational opportunity. My guess is that if you ask most anyone if they would agree that all students should have an education based upon equity, they will say yes. Sounds great, doesn't it? If you would also ask most anyone, and they would agree that all students should have an equal educational opportunity, they would say yes, and that also sounds great. However, the meaning of those two questions is significantly different. Equity is focused on outcomes, and if the outcomes are different, apparently we have failed. Therefore, we must find the reasons and correct it. Regardless of a student's abilities or limitations, and the advantages or disadvantages of their situation, we are required to produce the same result. Quality means our students have access to the same opportunity. It is up to them and their families to decide how they will use their God-given talents to work toward the outcome they want to achieve. While we have every responsibility to support their efforts, they must decide if they will take advantage of the opportunities provided and how hard they will work to overcome any perceived or actual disadvantages that might hinder their success. In the statement that I didn't read because I cut it out, it does state, quote, that educational equity shall be analyzed, incorporated, and prioritized. Shall be prioritized, not considered, but prioritized. The word equity, equitable, inequitable, and equity-focused appears over 30 times in this policy. However, I was unable to find a word or variation of the word equality anywhere. I had a lot more. I found a ton of information on the Pennsylvania School Board Association site. You'd be shocked how much information is there about equity policy. One highlight I want to talk about is that something called the Equity System Continuum. 4 approaches to equity that I found on the site. Part of the tools and resources. The first 3 approaches. Equity as a misunderstanding. Equity as a topic. And equity as a recommendation. Understand that equity as an emerging need and challenge that may only include the voices of a few, but begin to recognize the identity and need for systematic change. However, the 4th, equity as a foundation, acknowledges equity as a necessity.
Please wrap up.
I will, sir. Thank you. What I'd like to end with, I didn't know how people felt, but hearing a few comments earlier tonight, I think I know exactly how this board feels. They feel an obligation to put in an equity policy, is the way I took the few words that I heard. But I would like to suggest that the board vote no on the approval of this policy. I would further suggest that a statement be added to our policy indicating that we will not limit the success of any student
Sir, this is not
by
wrapping up.
subjecting
Sir,
them to the limitations
Sir, this is
qualified.
not wrapping up, sir.
Excuse me?
You're done. 3 minutes was over. I gave you 1 minute wording. We have a lot of other people who want to speak.
I have
Everyone
10
gets their
words
time.
yet. Sorry.
No.
And ma'am, this isn't, there's no like peanut gallery here. You don't get to speak on every speaker. You spoke, no one spoke when you spoke. Then you're going to have to leave, ma'am. Ma'am, you're going to have to leave. If you're going to interrupt speakers or speak, you're out of order, you're going to have to leave. Yes. That's how it works. It's a public
Mrs.
meeting.
Keener, can I please ask you to put your mask up in response to the requirements we have? Thank you.
May I read my one last sentence?
Sure.
Thank you. I would further suggest that a statement be added to our policy indicating that we will not limit the success of any student by suggesting them to limitations quantified by the evaluation of their community and their peers through an equity lens or any similar perspective. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Heidi Zerby.
Hi, good evening. I believe that the school district is broadly overstepping a parental boundary by considering teaching critical race theory. There is a line between parenting and academics. Our tax dollars are being given to Wilson School District with the assumption that you are preparing our children for the world of jobs, as well as teaching practical life skills. To spread gender confusion and racial bias, in my opinion, is abusive. Teaching a young white male adolescent that if he achieves anything, it's not because he's worked hard, it's only because of his gender and his color of his skin. How is that building him up? If you tell a young black adolescent that they can't achieve because they are oppressed, how is that building them up to achieve greatness and feel that they've earned it based on their own hard work? How will an adolescent female be driven in the workplace or understand relationship if she's taught that she will always be oppressed by a man? You sent out survey after survey over the course of COVID. Why no survey on CRT? Why was this meeting and the CRT content hidden in the agenda as equity? It tells me that you are well aware that this teaching is detrimental. We are not racist. This teaching is racist because it teaches our children to only see the world through gender and the color of one's skin. Why would you seek to divide our children when what children want is acceptance and affirmation? With fancy spin words to explain CRT, our children have no chance of safely saying no to CRT without being called a racist. So how can this possibly help them find their own moral compass when the teaching is absolute and grounded in gender and race bias? I believe that you will be psychologically damaging our children if allowed to implement critical race theory. As a parent, I strongly oppose any such teaching. I urge all of you to go to the education.pa.gov and search all the CRT buzzwords to find out what our tax dollars are funding in our schools. I was shocked.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony Roach. Anthony Roach, or Roche, I don't know. Roach with an E at the end. Okay. Rick Crump.
School boards across our state are becoming dangerous weapons to their communities, earning a reputation. Excuse me?
believe we're allowed to do that?
I would like them to film me.
John?
I'm sorry, it's against policy.
Of course, it's always policy with you people, isn't it?
Yeah, there's rules.
Yep. Wilson School Board is no different, becoming a dangerous weapon against its community. You give us 3 minutes to speak. I can't figure out if that's because so many parents are speaking out and there's not enough time in the day, or if that's just another way to manage us, just like masks. I'm standing 6 feet away from you, or at least more, but I'm not allowed to speak if I do this. You're constantly managing us. We weren't even allowed in the room tonight, constantly managing us. And now you want to indoctrinate our children with racism under the guise of equity? I raised 4 boys in this district over the last 20 years. 4 sons in the last 20 years, and not once was this ever an issue. Can somebody please answer the question for me? What suddenly became the problem that now we need to pass equity when it's really nothing but racism? Critical race theory not only reinforces the divisive victim-perpetrator narrative so prevalent in our society, but it takes it to a new level, teaching that any truth that does exists only because a racist system that imposed it.
Could you please put your mask up?
You're going to control me again.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is where I'm supposed to say thank you to you, right? You claim to stand for education, and most of you in this room either have a master's degree or a doctorate degree, yet you have so little wisdom and discernment to see what you're pushing. The fact that CRT is even up for discussion and a vote shows the leftist agenda that's being pushed. And you don't even deny that it is CRT. You want to call it something else, but you don't deny it's CRT. And you don't even have the guts to own your own decisions when you do these things. You claim you're simply abiding by the guidelines and policies of those set above you. If all you're doing is being a rubber stamp for others, then you don't represent us, you represent them. Which means we don't need you because you're saying they call the shots, not you.
1 minute.
And you may bristle at this, what I say, but it's true. And it seems our collective anger is the only thing that finally gets through to you. And I'm happy to back it up with a town hall debate with any one of you in this room, and I'll pack the town hall. But you will not face me in a town hall debate. You know why? Because you can't manage me there. Not only am I a parent in the district, but I also run a nonprofit organization to help parents take back that control of their school board. And I'm offering the full resources of my nonprofit to parents in this district that want to take back control of the board from you. In closing, you may be volunteers, but volunteering to indoctrinate and destroy our children's minds doesn't make it any better. And it's time you either start representing the members of this community, helping protect our children and upholding parents' authority of what goes into the mind and bodies of their children, or you'll get replaced by someone who will.
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
Michael Kaminskas, I'm sorry.
Come in and discuss it.
Kaminskas.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm doing this on the spur of the moment because I heard about the meeting at the last minute. My background, I'm retired Air Force. I have almost 30 years in service with rank and pay. I'm I'm a graduate engineer from Lehigh and Rensselaer Polytechnic. I taught at the Air Force Institute of Technology as an assistant professor. My wife student taught here at Wilson High School. And that's why I'm back here, because she followed me all over the world for the last 30 years. My children, one teaches in Florida, band director. Another son who was a sports trainer in Muhlenberg School District, but he's now a state policeman. And my daughter, who works at News Story with kids with learning disabilities. And because she's like my size, 6'1", 180 pounds, she gets all the really dangerous students. I know a little bit about education. After I retired from the military, I developed courses for FEMA and taught them for 10 years. In the military, I got a lot of training on propaganda, what different political systems provide information, how they provide it. They change the words to make it sound good, but then underneath it's detrimental. I looked at the Pennsylvania Department of Education website, and the first thing it said, white privilege, on the first entry. Well, I never felt I had white privilege. I worked for everything I got. Racist? There was one black family in my junior high school with 1,500 students. Perrin Foster, the guy in 7th grade, my class, we had 13 classes of 7th grade, was on my intramural basketball team. We won in 7th grade and 8th grade the intramural championship. In the military, I've worked with all different races. I found good people and bad people in every race and color. But I know what propaganda is.
1 minute.
Bottom line, please do not vote for this critical race theory or equity or whatever you want to call it, because I think it's a bad idea. And 2 years ago, I worked with Dr. Kennedy looking at Constitution Day to see what everybody in Berks County, all the school districts were doing. I will do the same thing from this equity standpoint. So I'm going to be a bad person in your ear looking at what you're doing from Constitution and equity, but I feel that you're doing more for equity than you're doing for the civics of this United States and teaching our children to be good citizens and part of the United States culture. Thank you.
Thank you.
Randolph Blatt.
Do you recognize the name?
Former board member?
Yeah, it's on 8 buildings also. I gave you a lot of awards. Okay. I'm here more in questions than the great speeches you heard. John, do you remember me? It is John?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay. Misinformation from Representative Cox. Is that why you're applying? I asked you a question.
Sir, this is a public comment period, and we don't respond to
So
public
you will not
comments.
respond?
But I would be glad to set up a meeting with you and answer any of your questions in a separate environment.
I want to know what the misinformation is. I don't
You can-
think it's
you look-
under,
I can say this, you can look at policy 832, I got the right number, correct? 832 is on, the draft is on there. There's nothing.
yeah.
There's nothing about critical race theory.
Okay. I want to clarify that. I hope somebody will write the questions down. How much is this going to cost? I'm a simple man here. I'm just going to ask questions. What programs will be taken away if this is in place, this being 832? Teachers say they're overloaded So what's going to happen? Equity, fair and impartial, simple definition. You had a first reading at a virtual meeting, and yet you canceled it this second meeting today. And you know darn well why, because of this out here. How many people were on the committee that developed this? Was it developed from a PSBA document? I bet you there's no more than 3 people in that committee. Wilson is a great school, no question about it.
1 minute.
Thank you, John. All I can say is you better get the public involved in this, because if you don't, you will be voted out. Amen. In 4 years. No.
Ma'am, you're not...
No, no.
You're disrespecting the speaker you're supposedly supporting. This makes no sense. If you make another comment, I'm going to ask the officer to remove you. Is that understandable? Please, for respect of the speaker and the process.
Thank you, John. It doesn't bother me anymore.
Well, it's rather childish, and if it was
Yeah,
a
it
student, we'd have the student removed.
I
We
know.
wouldn't, a teacher
I know.
wouldn't want a student to do
You
that.
still do a good job, John. I appreciate it. So I asked on that committee, I asked to get input. And if you have to use the darn auditorium, when I had to face 300 people when we signed a contract for the teachers and made national news about holding the meeting at midnight, don't do that, please. Just answer those questions. Get the public. You had no intentions of getting the public involved until recently, because you knew when Cox's letter came out, bingo.
Please wind up. Please
Yeah.
wind up. Sorry.
Yeah. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
But I do appreciate the fact that I could state it to you. And we'll go from there. But I will get involved in politics again. And I will get new candidates to run to replace some of you. Guaranteed. I never lost an election, and the person that I get will win an election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jared either Plummer or Plummet? Jared Plummet or Plummer? Plummer, sorry. Some of the, yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Members of the board, thank you all for having me. This is the first time I've ever come to one of these school board meetings. I found out that the board is considering something called critical race theory masquerading under equity or some other such buzzwords. Call it disinformation if you like. But either way, that is what prompted me to bring myself over here tonight to make the statement that we should be very, very cautious whether we consider doing this. Critical race theory is a version of Marxism, and quite frankly, it is the road to hell. It is a poison chalice. It should be avoided at all costs. We should have a nation, as one nation under God of Americans, all together, of all different skin colors, creeds, sexes, gender identities, political persuasions, what have you. We all need to be united as citizens in this great nation, not separated under artificial things that are only skin deep. As you can see from the number of other parents that have showed up here tonight, I think many people share that sentiment and believe that what is being done here quietly and stealthily is something that needs a great deal more sunshine placed upon it. Needs a great deal more public discussion and public comment so we can understand what exactly is being pushed. Who exactly is the one behind it, or the ones behind it, what have you. I'm not familiar with what all of you do on the board because this is my first time, like I said. But I think we need to be very clear on where this is coming from, who is funding it, and who is pushing it the most, because I think it is a very dangerous road we are considering going down here. Since all of the other parents here are saying many other things, and many of them much more eloquently than I'll simply say thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Ben Lieb.
Guy looks to be about my age, so that's nice to see. I have a 4-year-old son, Cameron, and one still in diapers. His name is Owen. Both sons of mine are white. Boy, I have a very similar experience to the gentleman behind me here, and the lady who went first. I myself am a military veteran, live locally here on Whitfield Boulevard. I do certainly share the sentiment of this is, I was a bit taken back by the fact that this is something that was not public knowledge as far as I knew here in the last couple of days. I am showing up here today to speak on the behalf of not myself, but more along the lines of my sons and possibly what might be forced upon them at this point in time as far as their education is concerned. I certainly have some real reservations about the overall nature of teaching critical race theory. I can only speak from personal experience as far as being in the military, being somebody who was raised in a very rural area of the state. I see my son whenever he plays soccer at Body Zone. He doesn't care whether the kids are black or Hispanic or any other color. They just play together as kids. They don't even look at that type of stuff. Whenever I got into the military, I grew up in a, like I said, very rural portion of Pennsylvania. There was one black family in my high school. Directly out of high school, whenever I went into the military, it was quite an eye-opening experience as far as a melting pot of different people who all come together. But one thing that we never fought about, we may have fought about food or PT, but amazingly, we never fought about race. We're talking about people from Los Angeles, people from Florida, people from Pennsylvania. You get the gist. They're from everywhere in the country. And not one fight, not one skirmish, not one discussion about how we look different from one another. That is the bottom line of what this is all about. I keep hearing the sentiment of equity, and that's a wonderful buzzword that just keeps on getting thrown around out there. But at the end of the day, there is no equity of outcome for people. There is certainly not the equality of outcome for people. You cannot guarantee that. But what you're trying to push here upon our kids is to identify one another strictly based off of the color of their skin, which is exactly what we're supposed to be against. I cannot believe that you're even considering this as a curriculum. And to this guy's point, what are you going to cut out? You going to cut out teachings of the Civil War? I see Abraham Lincoln's picture out here in the hallway. I strongly urge you guys and gals on the committee to consider your vote on this, to take a step back and think about what this is all about, maybe do a little bit more soul searching of your own and decide whether or not this is what you want to be pushing onto our youth. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Michael Mannix. Michael Mannix.
Good evening, Board. I want to thank you all for the work you do and the long hours you put in. And it's very difficult, and I thank you. What I heard from Board Member Coker, is that
Cocker?
Cocker, thank you. What I heard read was really the most I've heard about the equity policy. And so I came here tonight because I was curious about the reaction I had seen in the community. I wanted to give my support to the board in what you're engaging in. I know you're motivated by outside factors as well, and you're going to be responsible and comprise a good policy. And I support that. I came here, I wanted to understand the opposition to this, and I'm getting that a bit. And so it's fraught with complexity. I don't think it can be solved taking it personally or even in your own family context. I look at it this way. Our society, just to use this one statistic that I hear over and over, and I've researched myself and I think it's accurate. There's about 12 or 13% of the population in the United States is African American, yet they comprise about 35% of the incarcerated people. If you're an engineer and you have a system that's supposed to, have equal, that strives for equity and justice, if a subset of the population is 12% is represented by 36% of the incarcerated. There's something wrong with the system. It's not there's no single thing. It's complicated. It needs to be addressed, and that's what I think society is doing. That's what I think the board is going to try to bring that into the schools. They have that awareness. It's going to take generations to bring things up to equity, to be equal, and it starts in our school system. So. It's part of it here. So thank you for the responsible job that you're doing. And you have a lot of work to do. I'm sure the people that have opposition, we have common ground, good values that we can work with. And I wish you luck with that.
Thank you.
Jody Whitmer.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm also a first-timer here, but I felt it was really important to come and speak tonight, and along with everyone else, I'm also highly against the CRT. But what I'm mainly here to talk about tonight is the unmasking of our children for the fall. It seems like there's a lot of other districts in the state that are starting to come to a vote at their school boards about this issue, and I haven't heard this being talked about yet. So I just wanted to propose that Wilson gets something in writing. We need a plan. I heard that by the end of July, there needs to be a health and safety plan written. And I expect something to be in there about this because I don't want to be sending my kids back to school in the fall with wearing masks. We did the virtual program this year with my 2 children, and part of the reason I wasn't sending them back by close to the end of the year when I had the chance was I didn't want them wearing a mask. And I know there's a lot of other parents that feel the same way. So I propose that something get written in that plan now. Don't wait till, we'll wait and hear from this or that. It has to be worked on now to get that in writing and a plan and worded correctly. There's also a website that's being circulated. It's ppc.me, standing for Pennsylvania Parents Protecting Children. That petition for our school district is going to start circulating. So we're going to get names on there. We're going to start a petition, and you'll see that coming up, and I think we'll have a good turnout like the CRT issue. I mean, this was just something I heard about yesterday. So once this starts getting passed around, you're going to have a room full of people against CRT and this and the masking for schools. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy Pugh.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amy Poe. I have been an educator for 21 years. I have a master's degree in systematic theology and biomedical ethics. I moved to Pennsylvania recently, and I am a single mom of 4 kids, very young kids. And when I had to choose a place to get a home, I asked and I researched some more, and I researched some more. And there was no doubt in my mind that I wanted my children to be in the Wilson School District. There's not one negative thing I've heard about it. I have children who will need special education. I've heard nothing but amazing things about the special education and the teachers. I am here because of my concerns about the lack of transparency on the topic of CRT. I'm not going to add anything that I think people haven't already said, but I would just like to ask you to maybe open it up to more public discussion before a final decision is made. In trying to find out if this was a topic that was going to be discussed tonight, I could not find it on a search on my phone. I had to call the school district 3 times to get someone to answer my question, and then found out it could only be accessed through my laptop. Maybe it's my error and not another problem. But I want you to help me know that I made the right decision, that I am in the right place for my kids. It is very hard being a single mom. I have had to fight a lot to get where I am. I am proud of what I've done, and I want to be proud to have my students attend your school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last name is Wegman. Dwight, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to publicly read an email letter that I sent to every member of the board over the weekend regarding the critical race theory in the Wilson student curriculum. So I'd like to thank the school board for taking time to listen to my concerns. My name is Dwight Wegman. I've lived in the district for about 10 years and have had 2 children graduate from Wilson. The current issue before the board and the community is whether critical race theory has any place in the student curriculum. There are many people in the Wilson community who are completely unfamiliar with what critical race theory teaches. And I think it is important that the community fully understands this very divisive and destructive ideology. It is important that we review exactly what critical race theory teaches. At its root, critical race theory teaches that everyone is defined by the color of their skin or their gender, not their beliefs, not their behavior, not their character, just the color of their skin or their gender. Critical race theory teaches that all of our actions, conscious and unconscious, are all based on our race. So do we really think that critical race theory will help our children reach their potential and help our culture and society move forward? I say an unequivocal no. To say that our children or any of us are first and foremost defined by the color of our skin says that we and our children are incapable of making good and right decisions. It says that critical race theory must decide and nothing else matters. None of our children or us can control the color of our skin any more than we can control the color of our eyes or how tall we will grow to be. Yet critical race theory is saying this is how we should define each other and relate to each other. The question before us should not be about where we've been, but where we want to go as a culture, nation, and locally a Wilson community. We as individuals should first and foremost be defined by our character, our values, our behavior, our aspirations, our hopes and dreams, and not by the color of our skin. Our children, our students should have the freedom to make their lives what they want them to be, not what critical race theory tells them. We should not be pitting one group or race against another and defining ourselves as perpetrators and victims. Aren't there enough divisions among us already? Critical race theory would only drive that narrative. Is that the way forward for us? Because that is exactly what critical race theory will do. Wilson has always focused on building character in students, and now the district is ready to say that the color of your skin means more than character. I say we should aim to live out what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." True words of wisdom indeed. Yet we have a proposal before us in critical race theory that would only define our children by their skin color. That is probably the most racist ideology I've ever heard of. We've all probably heard the phrase e pluribus unum. It first appeared on the Great Seal of the United States in 1782, and if you pull out a dollar bill or a coin, you'll find it on our money. But do you know what it means? It is Latin for out of the many, one. That has been the motto of this nation from the very beginning. It is why peoples from all over the world have continually aspired to come to this land.
Need to wrap up.
Isn't unity better than division? What a grave mistake it would be if Wilson chooses to teach this divisive and destructive ideology. Critical race theory must be rejected at all facets by this school board and administration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jameson Bates.
Good evening. My name is Jameson E. Bates. I've been a resident of West Lawn since 2008. I'm a level 2 certified social studies teacher in Pennsylvania. I'm also the father to a young boy, a soon-to-be 4th grader at Whitfield Elementary. When I was informed by Representative Jim Cox that the school board of Wilson School District is considering a new policy number 832, educational equity, which I read, it is absolutely the implementation of critical race theory ideology in our schools. So I felt compelled to speak now, while I still have the freedom to do so. It's very simple. If you vote yes and support policy 832 and CRT in our schools, then you support Marxism. This means you support indoctrination and not education. CRT in the attempt by cultural Marxists to implement the concept of equity, i.e. equal outcome, is racism in practice. The fact that educators, especially educators of history, are comfortable with teaching the notion that a child's skin color will determine their level of privilege and success in this country is dumbfounding. CRT seeks to eliminate the concept of the pursuit of happiness from our self-evident natural rights, and that's equal opportunity. CRT does not believe that all people are created equal because it uses characteristics determined in our very DNA that we have no control over as the basis for creating a hierarchy of oppression. CRT creates a bigotry of no expectations. This is literally the antithesis of the great dream and message of Dr. King. If you support the cultural Marxism of CRT, there are only two possibilities to explain your worldview as explained by Dr. Jordan Peterson. Either you have an ignorance of history so extraordinary it borders on the miraculous, or your soul bears a malevolence for humanity that is horrifying to comprehend. We have 100 years of world history, which shows the implementation of oppressor versus oppressed ideology has every time led to a complete loss of freedom and a loss of human life that is too staggering for our minds to comprehend. Marxism has been tried, it has failed. 100 million or more people have died under Marxism in 1 century. The innocent people who were arrested, imprisoned, murdered, starved to death because of this hate-creating philosophy were people of every race, every skin color, every gender, and any other kind of intersectionality you'd like to choose from. In a country where policies like 832 become practice to indoctrinate our youth, people like myself will lose the right to speak at school board meetings. Or worse, our voices will be snuffed out entirely. It took a matter of years for a philosophy discussed in Europe to morph into violent revolution. This led to the murder of men, women, and children in cold blood, the starvation of millions, ultimately gulags in Siberia, and great leaps forward. Policy 832 puts our community on this path. Is your conscience prepared to accept that consequence? If a death toll of 100 million people is not enough evidence for you to vote no on CRT and Policy 832 in Wilson School District, then you need to undertake some serious study of history to improve your knowledge, or more importantly, perform some introspection regarding the content of your character. Thank you for listening, and by the way, the fireworks on the weekend for Class 21, they were epic. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and is Anthony Roach, did he definitely leave? Okay, then that's all of our speakers.
All right. Any other business before the board?
No.
Looking for a motion to adjourn? Mr. Schneider first, do you have a second? Mr. McCray, thank you, everyone.